This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. Sorry about the technical difficulties. First time in a long time we've had any issues with our network, but sometimes weather doesn't, always cooperate with us. We are back online, and we are very honored, thrilled, and excited tonight to have with us. He served as an assistant coach for the Vikings, Broncos, Chargers, Falcons, most recently the Chicago Bears as the tight ends coach. Let's welcome in the one, the only, Clancy. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Larry. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for, I'm not used to having these issues with my internet, so thank you so very much for, sticking with us here. I know it's a little later than expected, but, I want to start out with you asking you the question, and I've always wondered this because you've coached different areas on the offensive side of the football. You started out as an offensive line coach, then you became a tight ends coach and switched back and forth. How much of being an offensive line coach helped you to teach tight ends the proper blocking techniques on the line?
Well, absolutely helped a lot with that. A lot of what it helps is just to have a full understanding of the coordination of the offense when it comes to things of pass protection and things like that, who the offensive line will be able to pick up in a certain protection. So therefore the tight ends know who might be the hot defender if he blitzes off the edge and that type of thing. So it's not just for the blocking part of it, it's also just for the overall awareness of the offense and being able to teach that to the tight end. So that way they have a much more broad-based understanding of the offense.
Coach, let me ask you this. Describe your definition of what a tight end is and what characteristics from a coach or as a coach do you look for in a tight end?
How much time do we have, Larry? Because this could go on for quite a while, and I've been doing this for a long time, so I've got a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience in this whole thing. I'll tell you this. I think probably the first thing to understand is the evolution of this position in recent times, and just in my career in the NFL. When I was in Atlanta, I had a tight end, which I'm sure that people where you are would remember, a guy named Algie Crumpler. And Algie is not of the same. These days, Algie would be known as a blocking tight end. He was a multi-time Pro Bowl selection. He was the number one tight end in the NFL during his era for red zone catches, for third down conversions. He averaged, I think, in the years that I had him, eight or nine touchdowns a year, which these days would be that's an average season. Back then, there's no one getting 10 or 11. That's just what was unheard of. I think Shannon Sharp did it a couple times back in the 90s, and that was such a strange deal. But anyway, so that's kind of how all the tight ends were in those days. All right. Algie's background, hell, he played linebacker on defense. He wrestled. He played some basketball. He also wrestled. He threw the shot and the disc. So his background was out of a true gritty professional. So getting down and dirty as a tight end was nothing foreign to him. Let's fast forward now to what we see in the modern times. We see tight ends, and I would say probably half of them that you see playing in the National Football League have not always been tight ends. It's, not like it was back in the day where they were always tight ends. Nowadays, all right, you're getting a guy, he was potentially a receiver in college, and he grew to be about 230 pounds. He's running about a 4.75. Well, hell, that's just too slow to play receiver. So he gets demoted to tight end. Okay, and he goes over there, and he doesn't have that background of wanting to put his face on someone, and let's face it, of making contested catches like all tight ends have to do. It's very rare to see tight ends where they're just so wide open. Most of them, they're going to hook up over the middle, and you're getting banged by linebackers. You got safeties coming down, so that takes some grit. Or these tight ends are guys who were former quarterbacks, and they got to their college and realized going into their junior year that they were not going to be able to be the starter, so they get moved over to tight end. The last one are these guys that, and I've coached a few of them that have done great, guys that played basketball, and they get into their senior year of college, and all of a sudden they decide to go put on the pads and to see what happens, and they go on to become outstanding players. But again, I think, to me, that's kind of how things have changed. So how do I see the tight end position? Well, I think it depends on the year. I mean, right now it's certainly it's a more athletic position. I think the mindset that I look for are guys, if they were basketball players, I want to get a guy who is a rebounder, not a guy that's out there bombing threes, things like that. Because I think if you are in there trying to get in the paint and throwing elbows and being gritty, that will translate to playing tight end a lot better than some guy that wants to be out on the perimeter and that type of thing. There's so much mental part of it that goes into it, and we can get into it further if you'd like. But there's so much with the background information that you have to have on these guys, and know kind of what their hobbies were, what other sports they played in high school, what other sports they played in college. Hell, I had a guy, Larry, he was our second 7th round draft choice in Denver. Now, we just drafted Julius Thomas, who goes on to have a record-setting career, multiple Pro Bowl appearances in Denver. Along with him, we drafted a guy, Virgil Green, out of Nevada, Reno. Okay. Now, Virgil was a guy that, and I have no idea why people didn't take him sooner. And I'm thrilled that we did. But in all my background check, no one, Virgil played for the legendary college coach, Chris Alt at Nevada. And I've known Chris for 40 something years. So I knew that Virgil was going to be a tough guy. He was going to certainly be prepared. The transition from his college team to the NFL was not going to be foreign. And how about this? In his free time, in the summers in high school, and whenever he would go home on weekends and so forth, to his hometown of Tulare, California, this little country town, Virgil would go out and work on a cattle ranch, and he would wrestle calves and hold them down while the ranchers branded them. All right. He would also wrestle these calves down when they made bulls into steers. Well, I would assume that's kind of a tough job to have. But when I knew that when we drafted Virgil, that we had a real tough guy that could certainly handle that part of it. So, which is that tough guy, that gritty tight end, and then you have your move tight end, which is the guys like when I had Gates or Julius Thompson and the people of that nature. So I think the position has kind of morphed into where now you have to have two of them, one that can do one that can do the other. Whereas back in the days of Algie Crumpler and people in his generation, one guy did it all.
Right. How important is it in today's game to have that versatile, I guess is the right word, tight end that can not only do what's needed blocking, and I know you were hitting on it a little bit just there, but how important is it for them to go vertical and also to be able to handle the slot option in today's game?
There's no doubt that's the way that offenses are going nowadays. There are so many ways, and you'll see teams and where they will take a third tackle and have him come in, and he'll report and so forth, and he'll line up as the inline tight end, which is, it's okay. I think it does kind of limit what you can do as a play caller when you have a third tackle out there. So to have a guy that can certainly be versatile and do all of those things. I'll give you an example, Larry. I had a guy in my 2 years in Chicago, a guy named Jimmy Graham, who is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Jimmy was another basketball player at Miami, played in his senior year of football, went and had a great career, as you know, with the Saints, with the Seahawks, spent some time with the Packers, and we got him. And it was at the tail end of his career. And we had a very frank discussion, not to coin a phrase that I see you use, but said, Jim, we're going to have to have you embrace the blocking part of it. Jimmy says, yeah, that's it. Just let's do it. So Jimmy really embraced it. And I think and became a very viable blocker, but he's still one of the best receiving tight ends that the game has ever seen. So I think the answer is, as long as a guy is willing, maybe it's not always pretty, and you can always work on technique and put him off the ball and on the ball and move him around, whatever else. As long as he's willing to put his face in the fan and kind of mix things up with those guys on defense, then I think the other part takes care of itself. That's easier to do that than to get a big square body blocker and then have him be that threat down the field, going vertical or line up out in the slot and run option routes and things of that nature. So I think, once you have that guy that can do those things vertically and out in the slot, then to make sure he has the mindset to be willing to come in and do some of the dirty work. I watch George Kittle all the time, and he's not a right. very big guy, but when he's in there blocking, he throws his body in there, and it's like a crash test dummy. I mean, he's always getting himself beat up when you look at it, but he's very, very willing, and that's in my opinion, that's what makes him so darn valuable.
Coach, you look at offensive linemen, and they're probably the most unrecognized, people from a fan perspective, not from a coach's perspective, but they're the ones that really make almost all of these plays able to be successful. Talk about how unrecognized these offensive linemen is and how dirty it really gets in those trenches.
Oh, man. Well, the first thing is that these guys, they understand that, and it's one of the few position groups on the field, but they understand that it takes all five of them in unison to make any play work well. If one of those five in that chain breaks down, then you're not going to have great pass protection. You're not going to be able to run the ball. You're not going to be able to operate as an offense. So they understand that, and that's kind of how they're raised from the time that they start playing in junior high or high school all the way through college, and they're not used to getting their name in the paper or being interviewed on the radio, things like that, or on TV. So they're used to it, and most of the ones I've been around kind of like it that way. So yeah, that's just part of that position. That's just the nature of the beast, to not want to seek out the spotlight. In fact, many times I've had a player that had a great game. And as a team, we're going to award him the game ball, and the guy would not take it because the other four linemen that were up there with him battling the whole game, that they weren't also going to be getting a game ball. So that's common on every team, I'm sure, that they all feel like it's all for one for all.
Coach, what was it like having Peyton Manning as the quarterback his last year in Denver?
I'll tell you, Peyton raised the level of everybody in that organization, not just the players and not just the offensive players. I sensed it from when he first signed the contract and came into work, which was, I'm going to say that was probably late February, early March. And he was in there in the office every day, and you could sense a change and excitement, and everyone knew that they had to raise everyone. I mean, everyone from the GM to the scouting department, the janitors, the guy cooking the meals, the coaches, everyone had to raise their game to a much higher level, because we had probably the greatest to ever do it was now going to be in there in our building, and no one wanted to be the reason why he didn't have the type of success that we all knew that he could have. And shooting his 4 years in Denver, went to 2 Super Bowls, and it was outstanding. But from a coach's perspective, I know that he held coaches to a very, very, very high standard, and wanted to make sure that we were being demanding of ourselves and also being demanding of our players, to make sure that they were doing the right thing. And I coached tight ends at Denver when Peyton was there, then also coached the offensive line when Peyton was there. So I got to do it and see it through both set of lenses. And it was not uncommon, especially when I was the line coach, it was not uncommon to get a text from Peyton at 11:30 at night, midnight, something like that. And hey, Clance, what about on play number 24 of their game against Tennessee? If that blitz comes, what call should I make? And this, I'm thinking, my gosh, this guy's, he's on it. So I'd have to go through and find that play and then, give him an answer, that type of thing. But no, he was everything that you've ever heard or read about him. I would say it's that times 100. that people don't really understand, and the story has never really been told fully about his just relentless preparation and how demanding he is of himself, first of all, and he demands great things of himself, but how he demands it of everyone in the building, from the GM to the coaches to the players.
Coach, you coach, like you said, a lot of tight ends, a lot of offensive linemen. If you had to think of one guy, and I know it's hard to do, but that stands out where people would watch this individual play and say, that guy was under Coach Barone before. That pretty much exemplified the way you taught it, your philosophy. Who would it have been?
Well, gosh, that's so unfair for you to ask me that question, because I might make one guy really happy and really proud. I'm going to make another couple hundred guys really pissed off that I left them off of this one man list. The one that I was talking about, Virgil Green, and very few people ever heard of him. I don't think he caught a single ball in his rookie season. I think it was 2 or 3 years down the road, and he finally got a target and caught a touchdown, something like that. But just a guy that so smart, extremely smart, knew the offense inside and out, knew the adjustments before we even had to tell him how to adjust the game plan during the game. Tough, very, very, very accountable to his teammates. And as a coach and as a player, that's really all you want, just to make sure that everyone in that locker room is being held accountable to the guy next to him.
Coach, a lot of Tampa
How's that?
Bay,
How's that for kind of a
that's
easy,
good. I like
easy
it.
answer?
That was good. Coach, we got a lot of Tampa Bay fans that follow us also throughout our, we go nationwide,
Yeah.
but a lot of Tampa Bay fans. They just picked up recently a tight end that you coached named Kyle Rudolph, I believe, when you were with Minnesota. What are they getting in Kyle?
Yes.
Obviously going for Rob Gronkowski, who's one of the greatest to ever play that position. What are they getting in Kyle Rudolph now?
Well, to keep comparing him to Rob Gronkowski, obviously the same body type. Kyle's maybe even a little bit taller, great hands, the study habits, everything else. Obviously Rob is one of the best of the best. So no one ever wants to be compared to someone like that. But I'll tell you what, Kyle is a guy that I coached when I was with the tight ends in Minnesota before going back to the offensive lineup there as well. But what a gritty guy, probably an underrated blocker. I'm very underrated, and just people, just because he was such a dynamic target in the pass game, especially in the red zone, that people kind of forgot about his blocking. But he embraced it, and he did very well with it. He worked his craft, he worked his techniques, he studied tape to find out different strengths or weaknesses of who he had to block and that type of deal. But a guy that certainly, another smart guy. Very accountable, tremendous hands. He'll be a fantastic red zone addition for the Buccaneers.
Coach, a couple more questions. We'll let you run. I know we got started late here. You play the game to win. You mentioned in Denver, you finally got the chance to go to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. Tell us about the fulfillment of making it to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl.
Well, there's so many things that are just that game itself, and even the playoffs, and the deeper you go in the playoffs, it's different from any other experience that you have during the season. And I'll just go with this. And it took me going to the first one where we played against Seattle up in New York to fully understand it myself, because nothing that people tell you can ever prepare you for it. But all right, so you're going from, okay, we're one of 32 teams. Okay, now we're one of, was it in those days? Now we're one of 12 teams, whatever it was, because
Right.
he had 6, right? So all of a sudden, the media attention, right? The national media, they're being spread so thin. Now you have more media at your practices, on a game day, right? The sidelines. It isn't so much. It's not your family and friends that get the little pregame passes. Now it's all the media people, and it's just jam packed. And then of course the further you go and you get into the conference championship game, now there's only 4 teams left. You're in the final 4. All right. All of a sudden the media attention is just that much bigger. We get to the Super Bowl up in New York City. And our week of preparation in Denver was phenomenal. I mean, a ball didn't hit the ground the entire week. We were on fire. I mean, our execution, the game plan was tight. It was outstanding. We get out to New York City, and all of a sudden you're in the Super Bowl. And because of the media, and you have to give them certain time frames and whatnot where they have access to the players and the coaches, threw our schedule way out of whack. And so now we're not installing at 8 o'clock in the morning and having our walkthrough and practice at 10:30, whatever else. Now we're doing media at 8 o'clock in the morning. We're not even installing until 10. And then we had to bus an hour to get to where we're going to practice. So our entire rhythm was thrown off. Whereas Seattle, their schedule, for whatever reason, was very, very similar to what they had done all year long up in Seattle. And just that right there, just that little psychological hiccup really got us. And that was evident during the game. 2 years later, right, we're playing in Santa Clara against the Panthers. And the way that we did it is our week schedule we had out there at the game site was almost identical to what we'd done and had prepared for and how we're used to it. So, but I had a chance to at least warn the players after having been through it myself. Hey guys, you gotta stay on your schedule. Understand there's going to have so many other distractions out there with the media and so forth, and all the celebrities, and have NBA stars and baseball stars, movie stars, whatever else, all over the sidelines. Everyone wants to have a little piece of your time and things like that. But now that we understood that, we knew that we could block that out, and I think that showed very in that game as well with how we played.
Coach, we've seen a lot of you coaching in the last couple of decades. You took some time off this year. Will we see Coach Barone back on the sidelines in the near future?
I would say definitely yes. I'm not done coaching. I got a lot of ball left. I'm not done. Don't let my hair color fool you. All right, I'm not that old. No, I'll tell you what. My wife had a little medical procedure done a couple days before Christmas. And so the timing worked out great, and it was a great opportunity to be able to stay at home and focus on her and making sure everything's going to be fine with her before I jump back in the madness again in the next hiring cycle.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you. We're glad your wife's doing okay. More importantly,
yes, doing fantastic.
Awesome. And we're looking forward to seeing you back on the sidelines again, hopefully soon. I want to thank you very much for dealing with us this evening through the technical difficulties. And it's been a pleasure having you on Frankly Speaking Sports.
All right. Thanks so much.
Stay safe, Coach.
All right. Thanks. You too, pal.
All right. That was Clancy Barone, former coach for the Vikings, Broncos, Chargers, Falcons, and most recently tight ends coach of the Chicago Bears. Want to thank all of you for tuning in to Frankly Speaking Sports interviews this evening. It's been a pleasure talking to Coach Barone, and we'll see you again tomorrow night back on our regularly scheduled program of Frankly Speaking Sports with Hall of Fame safety, played for the Houston Oilers and played for the Washington Redskins. That's Ken Houston. From all of us at Frankly Speaking Sports, good night.